All right, welcome everyone to this explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because, well, we're exploring a scenario that is honestly as fascinating as it is utterly terrifying. We've all probably heard of the 1859 Carrington event, right? That massive solar storm that caused telegraph wires to literally burst into flames. Well, we live in a very different world now. So today, we're going to look at a massive what-if scenario based on a solar storm far more intense than Carrington. We're going to map out exactly what happens when the sun decides to just wipe the digital slate clean. Just imagine this for a second. What if a rogue solar storm permanently wiped out every single byte of data on Earth? I really want you to picture a civilizational hard reset here. Because we aren't just talking about a temporary power blockout where you light some candles and wait a few hours. No, we're talking about an absolute erasure of our collective memory. Every photo, every bank account, every single line of software code that runs a modern world just gone in a flash.
Okay, let's dive into this and look at the actual astrophysics of how this would even happen. The real culprit here is something called a coronal mass ejection, or a CME. If a supercharged CME struck our planet, it would generate these incredibly intense geomagnetic currents. And the scary part? These currents wouldn't just turn your devices off. They would permanently fry the physical architecture of our storage drives. We're talking hard disk drives, solid-state drives, massive server farms, and yeah, even magnetic tape backups. In just a fraction of a second, the entire operational blueprint of the modern world would just vanish into thin air.
So, how does this actually play out? Let's start with hour one, the Great Blindness. The immediate aftermath is basically just sudden, terrifying chaos. It's a rapid domino effect that takes place within seconds. First up, that geomagnetic surge hits Earth's atmosphere. Second, global electrical transformers, which are totally overwhelmed by the sudden surge of current, they just blow out simultaneously. The grid collapses instantly. But number three, that's where the real nightmare begins. The servers and storage drives completely fry. See, as people sit in the dark waiting for the power to come back on, they're going to slowly start to realize a much deeper horror. When they try to boot up battery-powered laptops or backup systems, the machines won't just be powered off. They'll be completely empty. The operating systems themselves are just gone. The immediate result of all this is an unprecedented global transportation gridlock. Think about all the airplanes currently in flight. They instantly lose all digital navigation, flight logs, transponder tracking, all of it. Pilots would suddenly be forced to fly completely blind, relying entirely on purely analog instruments. And honestly, whatever visual landmarks they can find out the window. Down on the ground, trains would instantly halt as their automated switching systems just fry. And what about you, driving down the highway? Well, if you have a modern car with a digital engine control unit, an ECU, your vehicle just dies mid-drive. Every major highway on Earth literally becomes an instant parking lot. And as you step out of that dead car, you enter the communication void. There is a total, instantaneous loss of the internet, cellular networks, and satellite communications. You pull out your phone to call 911, nothing. You try to check a news website to see what's actually going on, completely dead. The terrifying reality of this first hour is total isolation. There's absolutely no way to contact anyone outside of the distance you can physically shout. Moving on to week one, the collapse of trade and logistics. Now, this is where a technological glitch officially turns into a massive global survival crisis, and it brilliantly illustrates just why our society is so incredibly fragile. You see, modern society operates almost exclusively on just-in-time logistics. This is a supply chain model that relies entirely on constant, real-time digital inventory tracking to keep essential goods like food, medicine, and fuel flowing to where they are needed, exactly when they're needed. We really don't stockpile massive reserves in cities anymore. We rely on this constant, invisible digital river of goods. So when that digital river dries up, society simply freezes. Just picture the global shipping ports in places like Los Angeles, Shanghai, or Rotterdam. We're talking millions of shipping containers stacked miles high. Without database records and digital manifests, these containers instantly become mystery metal boxes. There are no routing labels indicating what's inside them, who they belong to, or where they're even supposed to go. The entire global supply chain is completely paralyzed right there at the ports. 48. That is the exact number of hours it takes for the average city supermarket shelves to be completely emptied out by a panicking population. Without the digital tracking telling warehouses to send more delivery trucks, the food simply stops coming. Within just 2 days, the local food supply is totally exhausted.
And it's not just food we have to worry about here. Life-saving medicine flows halt completely. And perhaps most dangerously of all, our core infrastructure completely fails. SCADA networks, that stands for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. These are basically the digital brains that regulate things like water pressure and gas flow through our pipelines. With those networks dead, water treatment plants and gas lines shut down. Cities would be forced to scramble, sending out workers to manage critical resources through clunky manual mechanical overrides. I mean, they'd literally be turning massive iron valves by hand just to keep water flowing out of the taps.
And that brings us to month 1, the financial and legal erasure. As the initial scramble for survival kind of stabilizes, humanity confronts a profound shift. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this staggering figure, 90%. Over 90% of all the money in the world today doesn't actually exist as paper or coins. It exists purely as digital data sitting on bank servers. So when those servers fried on day 1, the very concepts of net worth, debt, mortgages, and investments, they were completely erased. The global financial system didn't just crash, it literally ceased to exist entirely. This creates a stark, almost unimaginable irony. On one side, you have a multi-billionaire who ran massive tech empires, and on the other side, a completely penniless citizen. In this new post-erasure world, both of these individuals suddenly possess the exact same net worth, 0. All that digital wealth just evaporated into thin air, leveling the playing field in, honestly, the most brutal way possible. And it's not just bank accounts either. The very fabric of legal reality vanishes. Think about what actually proves you own the things you own. Land registries, corporate stocks, property deeds, your very identity through your birth certificate, the title to your vehicle, all erased forever. Property ownership plunges into absolute chaos. I mean, how do you prove you own your house if the county server holding the deed is melted? You can't. Consequently, society is forced to immediately drop back centuries into a localized barter economy. Paper money is totally worthless because there's no government left to back it, and digital money is just gone. True value shifts strictly back to physical commodities. The richest people in this new world aren't those who had the biggest stock portfolios. They're the people who have physical access to things like fuel, canned food, hand tools, medicine, and livestock. Finally, we look at decades later, the slow reconstruction. Humanity survives, of course, but the road back is an agonizing, multi-generational crawl. So the crucial point here is this brutal historical paradox we'd find ourselves trapped in. On one hand, we have the knowledge. We still have surviving engineers, right? We still have physical printed textbooks. We know exactly how a microchip works. But on the other hand, we entirely lack the tools. Every modern factory, every single microchip fabrication plant, every tool-making machine relies on digital code to run. Without that foundational code, our brilliant engineers would have to manually build analog tools from scratch, literally using raw iron and fire to build slightly better tools to eventually build primitive computers, taking generations to just claw back to where we were. When you look at how quickly it all unravels, it is just staggering. In hour 1, the lights go out, and we go completely blind. By week 1, the lifeblood of logistics just stops flowing. By month 1, our entire concept of wealth and law is erased. And it takes decades of analog rebuilding just to recover. It brilliantly and frankly terrifyingly illustrates how our entire modern empire is totally dependent on invisible electrons dictating the rise and fall of society. I want to leave you with this haunting thought. To the generations slowly rebuilding in the aftermath, our current digital age probably wouldn't be viewed as the pinnacle of human achievement. It would be remembered as a bizarre, mythical era built on shifting, invisible electrons, only for the sun to blow it away in a single afternoon. It really makes you question the sheer fragility of the conveniences we tap on our screens every single day, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll catch you next time.